I bought this 96 LS Firebird for $3,600, which seemed like a good deal at the time. So anyways, let's go over the parts that it came with, or that I was told it should have. It came with a fresh 6.0 with ported 8.62 heads, supposedly. A trick flow cam, maybe. The truck intake, which, according to the part number on the intake, it could be the Trailblazer. It's a little confusing on those intakes because I guess the later ones were both, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not an LS guy. It has a 3-speed TH350 turbo trans with supposedly a manual valve body and supposedly a trans brake. I haven't confirmed either yet. I was told the stall is a 2800, which I can confirm it is a 10-inch converter, but just by looking at it, I've been under there. Also has a new flex plate, a rear-mounted trans cooler with a fan on it, braided dipstick for the transmission as well, 3-inch mild steel, nice drive shaft, custom probably for the shorter trans, obviously. Onto the rear end. Supposedly it's a Detroit locker. It is posi. I jacked it up before. The gear is supposedly a 411. I haven't confirmed it. I just haven't messed with it yet, but I plan on possibly changing that gear anyway. The trans mount is DIY, a plate welded on the stock mount to get it the right position for the thing, which we'll get to that later. It's it is what it is. Depending on the year of the 6.0, from my reading, it could need an adapter for the transmission flex plate. I mean, if it's for the converter, or it could be the version that doesn't. I don't know. I'm not an LS guy again, but I was reading some do, some don't, depending on the little back machining of the crank. Because some will take the 700R4, and some will take the different for the 4L60E or whatever. I don't know. On to what else is under there, or it came with the car. It came with subframe connectors, brand new, never put it on. I got them in my workshop. Of course, they did not. This was a V6 car, so they used Hooker, LS swap motor mounts, which are quite pricey. When I looked online, they're like $300. I mean, that was money I would put towards a K-member, because K-member is not much more, and much better in my opinion. But they did what they did. It's got braided fuel lines that are poorly routed and kind of mounted. I'm not sure if they're Teflon. Judging by some of the parts of this car, they're probably cheap. They're probably deteriorating because of the ethanol in the fuel, which you got to use good line that's rated for modern fuel. Because you don't, and the fuel eats it. Trust me, I know. But moving on. Oh, there's also some cheap fuel filterability looking thing by the tank. So that's probably another Amazon, eBay special. But I'll check it out when I get into it more. There is an aftermarket torque arm in the car. Which if you don't know about these F-bodies, they use a torque arm, which is a central mount. And there's the original one, which goes off the transmission. Or you get an aftermarket that goes right to the transmission mount. This is a short mount design, which I'm not totally familiar with these 4th gens, but it mounts to like some points under the car that are like not quite far forward as the mount would be. So I guess they're more preferred for drag racing or not. I don't know. Not even sure the brand. I've seen some cheap ones. I've seen some nicer ones. All I can tell you is it's Heim joint and it's black. Oh, and underneath there was supposed to be 2 Flowmaster mufflers per the ad, which I didn't notice right away. But honestly, I hate Flowmasters. All I would have done was sell them. I don't like Flowmasters. It's been well documented that they cost you some power. So no big loss. Inside, I confirmed it is the stock ECU. So it's supposedly tuned, but most likely is there's wires in there. There's where you can plug in some USB cords and such. But that's also for the gauge in there. There's a AEM air fuel ratio gauge. So I'm not 100% on the tune and the tunability, but I was told it's tuned uses HV tuners, which, you know, that may be a while before I even get into that. My main goal is some other problems with the car. Inside there's also a nice Hurst Quartermaster, quarter stick I think it is. Is it a quarter stick or quartermaster? I forget. It's the shifter for the 3-speed, and it's got a nice aluminum cover, which is like an additional $100 these days. Those shifters are gone up a lot. I have in my C3 Corvette, which is you can't see it right there. It has a quartermaster. I don't have the cover because I adapted it to fit into the stock column, which this is like on top of the column. Actually, they made like a plate, like an I-beam that they set it on. I'm not sure if they just cut it and welded it. I gotta look into it more, but that might change later. I mean, once I fully, fix other main priorities, I'll address other things that I would have done differently myself. I mean, this is kind of the deal with when you buy a project. I prefer a car that's untouched. That way I can do everything myself. But because it's a project, it came with a lot of odds and ends, and odds and ends will nickel and dime you, here and there a lot. I mean, trust me, I've already bought a bunch of nickel and dimes for this thing. Let's see, what else on my list? Oh, it has drilled and slotted rotors. Not a big deal. They're pretty cheap on eBay these days, but the rotors are new. They look pretty good. One less thing I have to buy myself. Okay. The rest, I think I'm going to pick up the camera and I'll show you. We'll do a little more of a walk around. So give me a sec. All right. We'll have a closer look at the engine bay because this is where the bulk of the nickels and dimes are located, which a lot of this stuff I would not buy myself. I mean, it's stuff that I would use for now, but some of it slowly replace and get better later. So anyways, let's start over here. Again, I said the truck or TBS manifold. I'm not positive. The part number's in there. It's kind of hard to see, which don't worry about that. Right away I noticed from this intake, you can see there's this sensor right here, which I asked the seller about later after I bought it. This is a 100 psi fuel sensor, which goes right on the fuel rail, obviously, in the adapter, or multiple adapters. And he said he did not know why that was there. So maybe it has something to do with the custom tune. I don't know. I'm not an EFI tune guy. I mean, something I wanted to explore, which that's part of the reason I bought this car. I wanted to explore tuning EFI. I have tuned carburetors plenty, but this is new for me. So, not sure why that's there. If anyone knows, let me know. Again, this is the stock ECU. It's not like it has HP, the HAL HP or the Terminator or whatever, nothing like that. This is just stock, and I think he said HP tuners for the software. So, anyways, moving on. Again, there's that dipstick, Brady dipstick, which, those aren't cheap, but, the aftermarket ones actually are cheap, so it's probably knockoff. Because there's a lot of knockoff parts in this car. Like this fuel regulator. This is just a $30 fuel regulator on Amazon. Some people say they're good, some people say they're eh, but I mean, it is there. If I do what I want, I may not use it. It may be only there for a little while longer. Maybe I'll use it something else. Maybe we'll see. It's nice that it has the HVAC, AC heat delete. Because that's something I would have done myself because of where I live. I live next to a farmer's field, so there's lots of mice. And I remove it in pretty much all of my cars just to keep the mice out of them, because otherwise it's just a big old mess and I don't want to deal with that. The way this car is set up, it just makes working on it way easier. I mean, you don't have all that big old hump of stuff right here. And of course, you can see right there, headers. It has long tube headers, which again are probably just some generic, Amazon, eBay special headers. Well, they look like they did, a decent enough job shielding stuff and keeping it, from cooking. So, props to them for that. Well, the driver's side's been a little customized. A little massaging for clearance. And every car I built myself, I just want to say, every car I built myself, there's been things in the past where I later go, you know what, I should have done that better, I want to redo it. So, it's just, part of building cars. You learn as you go. So I'm not trying to knock the seller or the builder or anything they've done to this car. I'm just going to point out things and just things I would have done differently. Back to the car. So Over here we got some cheap generic 92mm throttle body. They're everywhere on Amazon, so they're like 60, 70 bucks. A DIY throttle bracket, which I don't know why they went to that trouble. You can buy the throttle bracket that fits this intake for 10 bucks on Amazon. So that's, I've already bought it. That's going to be replaced, when I use the setup. Let's see. Nice catch can. I'm not picking on them. You use what you got. People use whatever. There's actually a nice cheap alternative that I'll show in a future video, which I like to use. Let's see what else. We got some cheap fan. That's definitely a cheap fan, not a good fan. You can tell by the bolts on there. There's 3 bolts, and the better fans have a 4-bolt, which I've already ordered a better fan. And I'm going to try and make a shroud work, because if you don't have a shroud, the fan's not going to do much. I mean, this is a nice size radiator. I don't know what radiator this is for. There's all kinds of little doohickeys and knobs on it and brackets. And you can tell they made their own mounting brackets for here and over here. So I mean, I don't believe this radiator is meant for this car. It works good enough. I mean, there's plenty of room. I'm gonna continue to use it. So, that's fine. It's bigger than stock, obviously. Not that I've seen a stock one, but I've seen enough radiators and replaced enough radiators. This is a decent radiator. It'll work good enough. Oh, once it has a shroud on it. And another thing too is, setting up this gap right here, you want to try and seal your radiators better, because you want to pull air from outside the car, not just recirculate air. Like this could pull air from inside and just recirculate. You're not really doing as good. So ideally, that's what OEMs do, and how they mount the radiators, to force it to pull in cold air from in front of the car, not recirculate. But rambling. Another point, which is going to be, you can see right there. There's a nice 12-point harmonic balancer bolt, which the harmonic balancer also looks newish. Again, I told this engine was refreshed. I mean, those plates right there, that's me. Ignore those. That's coming in. That'll be in another video. So, could be ARP, but when I looked online, there are knockoff crank bolts. So, hopefully it's ARP, because I like ARP. And if not, I would replace it, because ARP is just great. I mean, having the 12-point is really great for turning the engine over. I do that in all my engines in my small block Chevys. By the way, this is my first LS. The first LS I've ever worked on, had, owned, been up close to. So, it's a nice, cool learning experience. I've always wanted one, but they've just been, out of my range, and just, I guess, well, side rant. Some states, you can go to the junkyard and get LSs pretty dang cheap. Certain states that are really popular in motorsports, like Michigan, automotive parts like V8 engines, manual transmissions, are a premium. So when I say $3,600 for this LS car, that's a steal. The only other LS car I've seen, well, I've been looking for 6 months for a car, only other LS cars I've seen with high mileage are over $6,000. And granted, they're not stripped down cars like this thing, but they're much high mileage. This is supposed to be a fresh 6.0. Well, it's supposed to be. That's another video. Anyways, so we got a catch can over here, which is dual Ian lines. I got it off right now, but it hooks to that cover and that cover, which it looks like they have 2 oil fill covers on here. They look stock to me, so that's that's creative. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't care about valve covers. I mean, I'll get some nice valve covers for my small block Chevy cars, but this is LS. The coil packs are on there, and no one cares about that. Which reminds me, coil packs. Go back over here for a second. Oh, and I did forget to point out, when I pointed out the interior of the car, this thing is wired up like it's wired up nice. Whoever did the harness in this car knew what they were doing, which is just going to be hard to show, but I'll try and get a quick shot of it real quick. Yeah, the camera ain't going to pick that up. I'll include a picture later. But it's got, fuse panel, relay panel, and it's wired up decent. But back to the coil packs, which I wanted to show. Okay. So these coils, they look some kind of random aftermarket, generic, whatever. I've already ordered, I looked at the part number and I ordered a spare just to have. But I also noticed, is this set? Now, it has these cheap JDM speed wires, which we'll just show the other side. Give me a sec, we're getting there. Get to my point. Yeah, it looks like, do this right here. They have shielded that one wire. You see right here, the font's different. Hey, I'm making a video. Be quiet. That dog. So you can see right here, the font's different. They have used not one but two sets of cheap wires because they burned probably so many or they've had problems with them. Spoiler, I've already bought better AC Delco wires. I mean, aftermarket wires are good. I like them. But when you have 8 coils, my opinion, you don't need to try as hard to have good spark. Moving on. So we got a roll control, which is cool, but they're cheap these days. You can find them at, you know, knockoff, no-name brands, pretty cheap. I mean, I made a video where I bought a bunch of them. I think it was less than $20, I believe I paid for each of them. I still got them. So cool, but you know, oh well. Fuse panel, no big deal. Proportioning valve, which again, that's because they deleted the AC. Sorry, not AC. The anti-lock braking, which I believe is around here on the stock cars. I don't know. I've never really messed with the 4th gen. First time for us. First time for 4th gen as well. 4th gen net body. I've had plenty of 3rd gens. A couple 2nd gens that I barely just had for a moment and sold. 1st gen's of course my favorite, but 4th gen, I think I'm coming around. I'd like to have a 5th gen or 6th gen, but you know, we'll see. I'd like the small block Chevy swap one. Anyways, so I mean, they put, you know, their nickels and dimes on here and there. There's, you know, this ICT build-up adapter for the temp sensor, which I asked him, like, hey, is this for the gauge in there? And he's like, I don't know. It's for the tuning or whatever. So I still got a lot to learn about this car. Figure out that the seller, I don't know if he built the car. I mean, I didn't really ask him. I mean, he seemed like he got a lot of terminology wrong. Like he was saying, he's like, oh, it's got a locked rear end. I'm thinking, mini spool. Mini spools are cheap. Everyone buys mini spools. He says, locked rear end, not welded. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like a mini spool to me. I mean, Posse's cool, but whatever. These rear ends are cheap. I'll get another rear end. And then I get there and he's, oh, Detroit Locker. I'm like, oh, when did you say Detroit Locker? So, anyways. It's got a newer master. What else? Let me check my list. Cut. Oh, I forgot to mention the nice wiper delete, which is not really nice. I like wipers. I hate when there's no wipers in a car, especially when you strip down a car and you want to do weight reduction. That's one of the last things I will get rid of. I like, you know, the street strip car, so wipers, at least having a dryer's wiper is what I like. You know, ideal. Good enough. I can't talk. So my goal will be to hopefully replace, you know, put back a dryer's wiper at the least. You know, not right now, but in the future, that's one of my goals. And as you can see, I've already started tearing apart the car to, you know, fix and redo things. They had some janky alternator bracket, which they did include an alternator bracket, which is right here. And I thought it was missing some parts, but it appears most of it is there. But that alternator bracket is meant to be used with that hole down there, that little end of the block, which is not tapped, drilled and tapped. So that's something that has to be done, which if the engine comes out, it can be easily done that time. But, you know, well, I mean, you could do it in here. You just remove the radiator and get a nice drill in there. You wouldn't have to use the right angle. You could do it, it'd just be a pain in the butt doing it in the car. But anyways, as I was saying, you can see I've already started taking apart the car to fix and change things. For example, it did not have a temperature gauge. Well, it has a broken temperature gauge in the dash, which this dash Let's see, it's the lighting. Yeah, the lighting's not greatest. It has 260,000 plus miles on the body. That's a lot. But for my use, I'm not going to daily the thing. It's going to be a weekend warrior, something to play around, have fun with. This is not my bread and butter car. This is just something that I bought for fun. So when I looked over the car, I test drove it, and ran. Good enough. I'm like, yeah, this is good enough to buy. The price is right. Initially he was asking $5K for the car. Then he dropped the price. I got him down a few hundred more. I probably should have tried to get a little more because there was a few other things I should have. I was like, wait, $3,600 for a running driving else car. That's a great deal. I mean, it's just. I've looked at all the parts. Sure, they're not the best parts, but there's a lot of nickels and dimes in this car. And there's maybe more than I haven't even noticed yet. So, that shifter is like $400-ish. The torque arm's $200-300, I think. If that is a G-short locker, that's like a $550, posi, unconfirmed. I mean, I can confirm the 6.0 right here by looking at it before I even bought it. 6.0 right on the block. I mean, now it is the 862 heads, which I guess are very common. I don't know enough about Ellis's, and I didn't really know enough in advance. I was on a little bit of a time constraint, so I was like, you know what? Honestly, if he lied and said it was a 5.3 or 4.8, I'd probably still buy it. Because it was cheap, something to ran drive, and I live in an area where cheap, cool, fun drivers, there's no such thing. It's either a project or it's junk. So you have to drive far. I drove 2.5 hours to get this thing. But I'm rambling. Let's wrap this up. The point of this video was to tell you about the car, show you what it came with, and I guess kind of what I'm doing. I've already bought a bunch of my own nickel and dimes for this car, and started planning to do it the way I want to do it initially. But then I ran into another hiccup, which that's another video. So we may be going a entirely different route now. I'm still hoping to get this thing done here. I want it done before fall. I mean, if I get to the point where I can't get done, I'm just buying something else. I want to drive and cruise a car this year. So, anyways, rambled off again. So, there it is. Let me know what you think of the car. You think I got a good deal? You think I got it ripped off? What do you do? Well, I know that people say, "Oh, you paid too much." I've already heard people say, "That's a great deal," and there's other people that said you overpaid for that. But for me, it was worth it. The parts, even not including the drivetrain, all the nickels and dimes, you're talking maybe about $3-ish or so. So, that's not even including the body either. So, I think I can't go wrong with this deal. It's not as good as it was supposed to be, but good enough. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Wish me luck.